Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Welcome to this interview Tête-à-tête with the composer Kaija Saariaho and the singer Magdalena Kožená as part of the opera Innocence, one of the two contemporary music premieres at the Festival d'Aix-en-Provence this year. Innocence is based on a libretto by the writer Sophie Oksanen, translated by Alexis Barrière, on a music by the composer Kaija Saariaho and staged by Simon Stone. Susanna Melki will conduct the London Symphony Orchestra and the Estonian Philharmonic Chamber Choir at the Grand Théâtre de Provence. So welcome to you, Kaija Saariaho and Magdalena Kožená.
Thank you.
We are really delighted to share these moments with you today. Kaija Saariaho, I have a first question for you. The project of this opera initially presented many challenges for a composer. Could you describe them, please?
Well, these many challenges are something that I wanted to give myself. So one of them is that I wanted to use many different languages in one work, because over the years I have understood that different languages and their prosody, their sounds world, they invite different kind of music simply. It's very strange. It's kind of intuitive process also. But this time also I wanted to use some languages that I don't speak myself. And this I have never done before. I always felt that writing opera for personality, I need to have a emotional contact to every word. On the other hand, the person with whom we decided these different languages was Alexis Barrière. He has studied in Czech, so he knows the language and he knows my attachment to Janáček. So I felt that I have a connection to this language, even if I don't speak it. And then, because this role is written for Magdalena, I was so happy to include her native language to this project. And so this way, different languages found their justification in this opera. Well, another big challenge for me was that there are 13 soloists. Yes. And this is something I never even dreamt about before. But here I felt that I want to again challenge myself and say, how can this totality be with 13 different persons? Because in my opera thinking, every person becomes a music. So how can I create 13 different musical personalities? And here it was again my discussions with Alexis, who said that, well, you never wrote music with spoken text. That why don't you try to enlarge your vocal expression from lyric singing into different kind of singings and into spoken, into acting. And so I realized that this was a solution for me to find these musical identities. So there is one, the Spanish text, for example, it's notated very exactly rhythmically, but not pitch-wise. And the same rhythmic language is then in the whole orchestra. And the teacher, it's a kind of Sprechgesang, a work that I've done with Lucy Shelton, singer with whom I have worked for last 30 years. And so it came very much also from Lucy's personality. And then still another example, there is the young folk singer, Vilma Jää. and I started to work with her. She showed me the different traditional techniques that she's using, and then I tried to put them into her role. And she has two different kind of singing styles. When Magdalena in the opera is her mother, and with her mother she speaks Czech. So her music that she sings comes from the same musical family than Magdalena's music. And then the text she's singing in Finnish, they are related in character a little bit with the Finnish folk music, even if I'm not doing any quotations. So we see that this girl, Marketta, has two very different kind of personalities also, and so on. So every language found their way of existing differently in this opera.
And Magdalena Kožená, so your character expresses herself sometimes in English, but also, as you said, Kaija Saariaho, in Czech. How did you work on the score, and what are its particularities for you, vocally and musically?
Yeah, so it's already, I think, at least 3 years ago when I was approached by Kaija and was extremely honored to be part of this amazing creation. And first we met in Paris. Also, Kaija took it so seriously, which is, I think, also not so usual and so amazing that we read together the text. She really wanted to know where are the accents. So that was already, the first start of this long, wonderful process. And I find it's very interesting emotionally to switch these two languages in this opera, because this waitress, which is my role, is speaking Czech usually. Either she speaks to her daughter Marketta, or when she wants to say really something personal to herself. And I mean, this pattern was a little bit used also for other roles, like the mother-in-law, who also sometimes switches to French. And I think that is really great idea, because I think we all, even if we speak a language pretty well, we always feel the most emotional and kind of deep in our own language. So that I thought it was very, very interesting. And otherwise, yeah, I worked on that role like basically on every other role. So first I read a libretto, and then of course I had to learn the music. And what was so special, I think, for all of us, then, due to the unlucky fact that we couldn't perform it last year because of coronavirus, we got to rehearse it last year, and we could rehearse it without stress, in a very kind of a calm, productive atmosphere. And then we came back to it after 1 year, which is incredible luxury. And I think everybody, every member of this group somehow processed this over this year, had maybe new thoughts, new ideas. And so coming back actually to it this year was like we found friend which we knew from our childhood and we were extremely familiar with. So in a way, I have to say that this luxury of prolonging this process, even I know for Kaija it must have been very painful to wait such a long time for this birth. I believe that it will bring even kind of more ripe fruits to the whole result of the thing.
Yeah, about these characters and this idea of 13 characters together on stage, Kaija Saariaho, I think that you also worked your orchestration to create some references in our ears, to have some references about the characters in the music. How does it work?
Well, it works so that every character have their own music, and it needs to be different enough so that it's imprinted to our mind. I mean, this is what composers it's kind of part of composer's normal work, that how do you want to express the musical form, and what do you want, what are the signals that stay in listener's mind. There needs to be enough contrast, otherwise everything sounds similar. So these contrasts are created with all musical parameters, with the orchestra colors, the textures, the range, the tempi. I mean, all the normal musical parameters. And here I try to be clearly, because this piece is a puzzle. It's a puzzle that comes together little by little. And I need the listeners to be aware of that, and at some point recognize also things that are coming. But on the other hand, not to recognize too mechanically, because otherwise it becomes boring. So every character needs to also, every material needs to come back, but maybe always a little bit different, and maybe combined to another material. So, well, this is composition.
But could we speak of a new opera genre like the choral opera, for example, to describe Innocence?
I don't describe it. I mean, I don't need to categorize it. I don't care about categories, and I'm not so enthusiastic to be described of the most important Finnish left-handed woman composer. You know, that's not the important thing. The music is important thing, and I think happily it's not my job to find words how to categorize this music. My ambition has been to create a work that I've been longing to create for a long time, and it has taken very long time to do it, to do something, to find in my own music, in myself, something that I have not been able to express earlier, to find something which is humanly important, because when I work on opera, I think it's with the right persons, it can be very deep experience. So I'm not likely to write opera buffa in my life. For me, it's really like more like nearly a spiritual experience that, at least for me as a listener, with some fantastic performances, it has given to me so much as a human being.
Yeah, and on that subject, in this opera Magdalena Kožená, you have one of the main roles. In any case, the role that makes everything change in the story. You are like the turning point. How did you, with this music in yourself, how did you bring it to life on stage?
Yeah, I think already the theme of a mother losing own child, as mother, I am mother of 3 children, so already this is emotionally very tough thing, but at the same time incredibly interesting. And I often suffer in operas from not having enough time to show the evolution of the role, because usually you see the person in one situation, then of course there is a lot of other people who have to tell their story, and then you have another bit. And I have to say, I really admire in Kaija's piece that in spite of these 13 roles, and so nobody can really tell the story on a kind of a huge long scale, that there really is a line which you can follow, which you can really show at least the evolution of her character in that situation. and it's kind of a very dense but incredibly intense. So yeah, this is how I see it, and I think Kaija was incredibly brave also for me to bring this folkloric Finnish type of singing into that, because I think this is incredibly daring and something which might not work. And I just think it gives such a special color to it, and the fact that this Marketa is the only person who actually is not alive in a real situation there, and somehow she sings in a completely different way than everybody else. And it just also brings to my acting incredible thrill, because you are basically talking to a ghost, but at the same time there is this person singing in this incredible way. So this strangeness of it, it's also something which gives me chills from the first moment I meet with Marketa, and this is also a very magic moment that everything gets still, and she appears there by sort of a magic in that moment, a musical magic.
Yeah, that was one of my questions, because your relationships with the other characters are really different. These relationships alternate between past, memory, but also the present. Could you describe the other relationship that you have to the characters in the opera and the difference they have with Marketa, for example?
Yeah. Well, I mean, Waitress comes to this situation of a wedding where she, by accident, appears there and sees people she hasn't seen for 10 years. And they even don't recognize her, because she lives still. Of course, she knows her daughter is dead, but I think she doesn't want to believe it. So she lives sometimes in this false reality that it didn't happen, and buys every year her daughter birthday presents, etc. So there is also that it's very difficult to act this double thing, that I know my daughter is dead, and there are these people who don't even know who I am after 10 years, but at the same time I don't want to believe it. So the relationship with the others, of course, there is another mother, which is mother-in-law, which was my friend, and she's the mother of the person who killed my daughter. And so again, I loved her. She was my friend, and suddenly she's my biggest enemy, because she gave birth to, as I say, to this monster. And again, her husband, of course, knew him as well, maybe a little bit less. So there is again this thing. Okay, I know these people, they were once close to me, but now it's no way, I cannot communicate with them. So for me, there is always this double feeling of what am I going to do? Am I going to tell the truth? And then I see this innocent bride, and she says, oh, this family is wonderful, and it's going to be all great. And I just can't stand it anymore. And I have to, there's a certain point I decide I'll tell her what happened. So it's, in any case, the relationship with everybody is incredibly tense for me, and I think that I'm not able to be in a way completely realistic about everything, because I think I'm not able to handle myself as a completely mentally healthy person, because I haven't processed this death of my child. I just wasn't able to be dealing with it in a healthy way.
And the opera deals with serious social issues such as violence in society and how we can overcome a trauma. And all these themes are more that sensitive now in our society, and unfortunately due to their constantly updated relevance. And Kaija Saariaho as a composer, and also Magdalena Kožená as a singer, what impact has this had on your work?
Well, before going to that, I would just like to comment what Magdalena told about the relations of the roles and her relation to other persons. I think here we need to mention the writer Sophie Oksanen, because we made many decisions together, but it's Sophie who created these persons. and it's her sense of drama that gave us to these strange multiple connections within every person, and so it's really that's the skeleton of the work that for my music and also my collaboration with Aleksi concerning the languages and all that, that came then after Sophie's first version of the libretto. This work took years. But then what comes to these, your questions about the actualities, well, yes, they are actualities, and yet they are eternal problems. I mean, that's what interests me. I'm not a person who would have written opera about Princess Diana's death, or then I would have also taken that to another level. So to speak about the subjects that we are speaking here, they are unfortunately very actual subjects, but at the same time, they are subjects that I'm sure that have been there as long as humanity has been there. There has been the violence in different forms. There is the problem of identity of young persons when they are becoming adults, their relation to their environment. All this, of course, now today, but the technology that took over our whole world, that process was so rapid that we didn't realize really what's going on, and we had no control on it, and we still have very little control, and we still, that's my opinion, have no idea how deeply it can affect the child's mind. And I'm sure that many things will happen when we realize how dangerous or wonderful it can be. It has two sides. Well, those things are mentioned here because this opera is happening now, but not they are just mentioned. They are not like, we are not going into details. So Sophie, after when we had made this decision about the subject, she made a lot of research of many different cases, and certain things came always up, and those were the things that that stayed also in the libretto.
Magdalena Kožená, you want to add something?
I think Kaija said it so beautifully that I don't have anything better to say.
Do you think that opera has a role to play in our eternal social debates? If I take the example of Innocence, did you want to convey a message, perhaps about this violence, but not only about that subject, as a composer and also as a singer on stage?
Oh, was it a question for me?
For both. I don't know who wants to begin.
Magdalena, if you have something to say, please.
Well, of course, I believe that opera has some kind of importance. I mean, I think especially, like new creations, of course, we can always tell our contemporary story via some opera written in 300 years, and some of them are still very modern. Like I still find Monteverdi's operas the topics are, as Kaija said, actually in a different form, still a little bit the same. So I'm completely sure that, if we tell the story of Innocence, it definitely has an impact on people, and at least they they reflect on it, or they just kind of, even if they just kind of have some emotions with it, that's already important. For young generations, important that they were not spending 2 hours on the phone and they went to a theater and went for opera. I think that's also a very important thing. So yes, I'm convinced that that's important, that we're doing this kind of things.
Well, yeah, and I think that more generally art is much more important that many people understand.
Exactly.
And in our society, which is so money-based, or these, we are speaking about things that cannot be evaluated in money, you know. How do you evaluate the human mind and the spirituality, the music that I think for me personally, it's because of I'm a composer, I love music, but I think music is very deep way of communication, and we process it intellectually. We process it also with our feelings, but then I think it is a little bit like a smell. There are so many smells around us that we don't recognize, or we don't feel them, but our body is sensing them. And you know, all these stories that you fall in love with somebody because that person smell, but you don't even know about it. So I think music similarly goes really deep in our body. And so for me, it's a magic communication a little bit. And an opera in the best form, having all the artists together, having found all the good persons for the good place in this big work that is done during very months and years. I think that's very powerful. And I think if anybody who comes to Opera House and can experience this kind of work just with open heart and open mind, I think it can be enriching one way or another. And but when I'm working on my music, it's not that what I'm thinking of. I'm just thinking of how to realize what's in my mind and how to technically create the music. That's not any kind of meditative process. It's very practical thing. It has to do very much with technical things concerning my composition.
And about this practical aspect, how did you work with the artistic team of the production after writing the music, after learning it? What were the different stages of work on stage to create Innocence for the festival?
Magdalena can speak about that.
Yeah, I think you can both answer for that question. Yeah.
Sorry, I was so convinced that was a question for Kaija that
No. It was that how did you work with Simon Stone and his team to create this work on stage? What were the different parts of the creation, the different stages of this work after learning the music and after having the score in your hands?
Yeah, so as I said, we met last year, and we were lucky to be all the time on stage in the real set, which is normally not the case because you rehearse just in the rehearsal studio, where it was very difficult this year because as the stage is turning, we couldn't have that. So it was technically quite hard for us to realize what is happening when. But I think Simon was just extremely well prepared. He had the concept in his head before we met, and we were just put always in a certain situation. And of course, we were working with him on you know, the acting things. We had a lot of musical rehearsals. So it was a process of finding the relationship between us with having already you know, the frame done before, because some directors, they work a little bit differently. They don't have maybe a completely clear concept before, and then they meet with people, and then something kind of is the result. At the end, the result of everybody bringing ideas together. But this was rather working within a kind of, I think, very, very clever frame. And I think that the cast really is extremely fortunate. I mean, all the people are, according to me, really perfect for their roles, and they are big pros. And I was also incredibly impressed with the students. I mean, they worked really hard also with the choreographer. I mean, they had so many more rehearsals that we were almost jealous about them having much more rehearsals. And each of them has a really completely own character, not only language-wise and tempo-wise and music-wise, but also they really worked on their movements, and this person really moves in a different way. And I'm always fascinated to actually watch them when I have a second, and I'm not actually on stage. So for me, almost they are for me the main part of this opera, because they just tell the most important story of what happened on that day. So as Kaija said, it's a real puzzle. Also, the house, you know, is composed from different rooms, and there are kind of always different rooms shown and lighted. So that must have been quite complicated to think it before actually see it and be with the people. So that really takes an incredible director to have this vision before. And then we have to come and bring our emotions and fit into it, and that's what happened, I think.
I would have two things to say. It's that when you say that it's true that the students tell what happened that day, but you show what happened to you.
Sure.
It's as important, you know, as a result of those factual things that happened. We live with you more than with them. What happened to you?
It's very hard to judge when you're on stage.
Yeah, of course.
And you can't see the whole thing.
No. And then I just wanted to say that what happened last year, it was completely exceptional. And I think we really need to be thankful for Pierodi, because I'm sure that without his conviction, this could not have happened. That we, the whole group, were there for many weeks in the middle of this COVID first summer. It was a big gift, and for me personally it was, because I have been carrying this opera for so many years, and then last summer I already started to feel a little bit less weight on my shoulders, because I realized that this will happen and it will be beautiful, and with all these people in the project.
Yeah, we really enjoy seeing the production. I'm sure the public will too. So thank you for this really interesting discussion. To our auditors, thank you for your attention. We wish you an excellent show, Innocence, and a very beautiful 2021 edition of the Aix-en-Provence Festival. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.